Okay, our last speaker scheduled is David Dunham, and due to the great efficiency of Steve Preston, we are now back on schedule. So David is going to talk about upcoming total and grazing lunar occultations, especially Aldebaran, for the remainder of 2015 and in 2016. So Dave, whenever you're ready.
The graze maps that I'm going to be showing here were all prepared by Eberhard Riedel in Germany, so I want to thank him for that and for the support that he's given us over many years with those. Okay. Okay, I'll let okay, it's okay for me to go on then? Okay, fine. Anyway, these maps I'm showing you here are all the ones for 2015 are at this website, grazemap.htm at iota.jhuapl.edu. Thanks, Steve Conard, for continuing to post those over the years, since I left the lab. Anyway, I have the data, I have the charts and everything, but just haven't gotten together everything to post the ones for 2016 yet, but I do expect to do that within the next few weeks. Next slide. Before going on to these grazes, I want to just make a few remarks about my previous talk. And one is kind of an open letter to Richard Nolthenius and really to all IOTA observers, though, to chide them a little bit. But anyway, Richard, congratulations on your successful recording of Friday night's occultation by Oeone, or however you pronounce it, at Carrizo Plain, California. Yeah, it's a bummer that Las Vegas region was hopelessly clouded out, but we knew days in advance that there would likely be problems there. I'm glad that you obtained an observation so that at least to the accuracy of the radius of the asteroid we know where the path went. But it would have been so much better if you had been able to run a remote station 10 kilometers to the north and or maybe one to the south of your location. 2 or 3 separated chords are so much better for determining the size shape of the asteroid and obtaining a more accurate astrometric measurement of the asteroid relative to the star. We have the technology to do this now, as a few of us have demonstrated a number of times. A MIDI 80 millimeter scope system could have easily recorded that event, and others down to 11th magnitude that occur reasonably often within a 150-mile travel radius and can cost less than $500. And for about $200 more, you could get a 120 millimeter maxi that can reach the more frequent 12th magnitude of events. Maybe in your next equipment request to the college, you might ask for that. The small scopes can be easily hidden and run unattended, as a few others and I often do. But when they fit your schedule and theirs, they could be attended by students. That is a great educational opportunity. Running more than one station takes more time and effort, but you're used to challenges, taking long hikes and climbing mountains. I also enjoy those things. But running 5 or more stations can be exhilarating, like an extreme sport. As I showed in my Down Under talk, 2 people working as a team can actually cover a whole asteroid occultation path and the 1 sigma zones. I hope that you and more other IOTA observers can take up the multi-station challenge, at least start running just 1 or 2 extra stations, maybe at first in the backyards of friends. Also, in and around Bakersfield, there are a couple of casual occultation observers who are not on the IOTA occultations list who sometimes observed. It would have been good to notify them. So it looks like it's just a slight cutting off at the bottom here, but that's okay. Next slide. So Anyway, I also wanted to mention, I should have put in there that the 10-inch suitcase telescope, I think, is the kind of the wave of the future for remote station work, because it's quite a compact system, and it has 4 times the light gathering power of a maxi. So it can give quite a bit higher signal to noise ratio observations for the fainter stars, for the more common 11th and 12th magnitude events that we have. So I really hope that we can get a manufacturing capability of that telescope in the United States. I'll certainly be bringing back one from Australia, and maybe I'll get John Broughton to build me another one or so, because there's a 10-inch blank waiting for that that we had shipped to Massachusetts a couple of years ago. But anyway, I just want to say a few words about Central Australia and Alice Springs. If you can afford it, I heartily recommend spending some time in Central Australia, but it's too hot there in the southern summer. Anyway, it's really an astronomer's mecca. A place that I think any astronomer should go to if they can. Skies are completely clear about 75% of the time, almost as good as California's Central Valley during the summer. And the southern sky, of course, is incredible. Sagittarius overhead with the brightest parts of the Milky Way extending from horizon to horizon is just a breathless sight. Alice Springs itself is light polluted, but it's not large, population less than 30,000, and there are no street lights on the highways between the much smaller communities, most of which are just roadhouses, spaced about 80 kilometers apart along the major north-south highway. 30 kilometers outside of town give views better than any I've seen anywhere in the eastern U.S. I'm not an astrophotographer, just an occultation videographer. I'll leave the taking of pretty sky pictures to others with much better equipment. And so I want to give a great thanks to Richard Williamson, who runs a store shop in Alice Springs called Conspec that sells telescopes among many other things, and he's happy to help any visiting astronomers. So with that brief diversion, I'll go on to the grazes. First, I'll cover events for the rest of this year. Next slide. Wow, these things don't show up as well as they do. There's some, I'm going to bring up the PowerPoint myself here so I can see what's being missed at the bottom with these. Okay, let's see now. Okay, there's really not much lost in this first one. In fact, nothing. So anyway, this just shows the very best of grazes during the year 2015 across the U.S., and there are just 2 left, number 8 and number 9. Number 8 is an Aldebaran graze by the full moon, whose path crosses over Salt Lake City, Denver, near Joplin, Missouri, and Chattanooga, and Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So that's the yellow line crossing the center of the chart here. It's sort of almost like the 2017 August total solar eclipse path, a little bit farther south, except at the east end. Unfortunately, with the full moon, that Aldebaran's bright enough that you can see it against even the full moon. So it's not, won't be a super spectacular, but still an interesting event. But there is a pretty good event with a thin crescent moon with a 4.4 magnitude star, Theta Virginis, the one that occurs on December 6th. This was one I'd consider really the best occultation for the rest of the year. It's visible only in a shorter path, though, crossing central Arizona, Socorro, New Mexico, and Lubbock and Waco, Texas. And this one doesn't show it, but extends farther east into and goes over New Orleans, but it occurs at the cusp of the moon there, so it's getting too far on the bright side to be considered on this map. But it could be observed there. But especially in New Mexico and Arizona, this would be a good for a molestation effort like we tried for the 49 Leonis grays in Australia in June. Next slide. And this just shows the worldwide events for 2015, and there are just two. And this just shows the Aldebaran events and a couple of others, but the only one is that November 26th event I mentioned, but there's also on October 29th, there's a graze of Aldebaran, and the northern limit, though, is over the ocean going across Iceland, and then it hits northern Siberia. So everywhere south of that, though, gets a total occultation. So Europe will have a good shot at the total occultation for that. Next slide. Then from the RASC handbook for 2015, and also on that website that the same data is given there, we have the chart for September 16th to October 31st, and there are just two grazes left visible for the rest of this month, but both of those are outside of the United States. So there's nothing really special about those events. Next slide. So this is the best events for the rest of the year. So this shows all the ones in the RASC handbook, which includes grazes down to about 7.5 magnitude or so. But here I just highlight the 5 best events that involving pretty bright stars, especially at Omicron Leonis graze on November 4th. But it occurs just at sunrise at Coos Bay, Oregon. Anyway, some reasonably good events that you can see there. The one on the path number 144, December 16th, involving 18 Aquarii, the 5.5 magnitude star with a crescent moon, would give you a very high, good signal-to-noise ratio, passing just south of Dallas and over Memphis, over Hagerstown, Maryland, and then up just north of Philadelphia and over New York City and Cape Cod. So that's, I think, one of the better events, and it goes over, passes near a lot of observers if the weather cooperates. Next slide. Okay, we go to 2016 grazes. Anyway, maybe the next IOTA meeting could be scheduled for one of the Aldebaran grazes. The one on the morning of July 29th should be especially spectacular, and I would kind of recommend that. I think this would be might be better than scheduling it for any asteroid occultation. As we saw this year, it can be dangerous putting all your eggs in one basket for an asteroid occultation. The Oeone occultation may have been better observed if the IOTA meeting had been held on another weekend. The same argument might be said for a good graze, but they are not as scientifically important, but could present a good educational public outreach opportunity in the host city. The July 29th graze will be a rare naked eye spectacle, where you could really, do some, special publicity that you just can't do with asteroid occultations that require at least a good pair of binoculars, well mounted, and a knowledge of finding target stars in the sky. But everyone can find the moon, I think. So anyway, and also sometimes it's good to go for an asteroid occultation if there's just a small area where it occurs in, like we had, I think in 2009 we had a good asteroid occultation with a 7th magnitude star that passed over central Florida. So we had the meeting in Orlando. That was the only landmass in the U.S. that the path crossed. So that made sense. But if you have a longer path that passes over multiple opportunities for observers to get to it. I think the observers are best off to just concentrate on making the observations, to follow the lists and maps and things that Steve Preston posts, and Occult Watcher and so forth. Just one other point, mentioning Occult Watcher, some people have said, well, why not do an Occult Watcher for grazes? But really there's not much point in doing that, because with the changing geometry of a graze along the path, if you go 100 kilometers down the path, you can't intermesh with other observers or anything on the profile. And there's and we have the Kaguya profiles, or in the LRO profiles, where you can predict the best multiple event zone. It's just best to hit those, and the ones 100 kilometers away, it's going to be a different cut across the asteroid to get the best zone. And so, also observers have predictions from IOTA for the rest of the year. If you have Occult 4 on your computer, you can compute all the grazes within a specified travel distance of your site, generate your own predictions, but IOTA members get them as a member of the of their membership, free. Anyway, next slide starts showing the opportunities now. This just shows there are 2 Aldebaran grazes during the first 2 months of the year. On January 20th, the path going over La Paz, Baja California, Houston, Baton Rouge, and Savannah, Georgia. The moon is 82% sunlit, though, so it's not a super spectacular event. It wouldn't be a naked eye event. It would require binoculars to see when the moon is gibbous like that. Still, it should be pretty good. Then on February 16th, there's another Aldebaran event, but it passes over Tacoma, Pasco, in central Idaho, so in the Pacific Northwest. But of course, the weather prospects in the wintertime aren't too good anywhere. And I just want to point out there's another event that Rho Sagittarius, sort of a star of interest to Bob Sandy and Hal Povenmire and a few of us, but it occurs there's only just a short path near Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And it's the only place where it will be fairly good visibility on February 6th. And I mentioned, show some other pretty good grazes of rather bright stars, 5th magnitude stars, and crescent or first quarter moon that are visible in other populous areas, like the 75 Tauri Hyades star on February 16th, which occurs a few hours before the Aldebaran graze in another part of the Hyades. There are other Hyades events, but they occur on the bright limb, or there are other problems with them, which is the reason I didn't highlight them. But that 75 Tauri is a good one that passes over Minneapolis, Detroit, and Philadelphia. Next slide. This just shows for the next 2 months, then March and April. There's just one Aldebaran graze that occurs mostly in the daytime over Cuba. Well, there's 2. We have both the north and the south limit. This is one that doesn't show up because it's cut off on your slide. But let me go to it so I can at least narrate it. The path number 44 at the bottom of the map, it's on April 10th, graze of Aldebaran with only a 16% sunlit moon, so it would be a really spectacular total occultation visible from the eastern United States, but it occurs in daylight, or be in daylight for most observers in the U.S. The southern limit is in daylight across central Mexico, and then in Cuba the sun just sets in eastern Cuba, and be a very spectacular event there. But at the northern limit, it's a very will be spectacular in Labrador, near Goose Bay or somewhere in that area. But the northern limit also passes over British Columbia and just a little bit north of Edmonton, but in daylight. So that won't be so easy. You can see daylight grazes of Aldebaran. Certainly, if one passes near you, it's worth traveling to see that. With a telescope, you can see that star quite readily, and a quite pretty sight to see them in the daytime. But there are other good events that I list on the chart here, especially the one on March 16th, the 5.9 magnitude star with the first quarter moon, with the path passing over San Francisco and near Fresno. And it's interesting because it's a close double star with equal components separated by half a second of arc and position angle 141 degrees. So it should produce a nice sequence of events for observers. You can line up one component or the other. I'd line up with the best component, the one that's deepest in, and so you have the best events with it. And just anyway, you can look at these. There will be posted eventually by on the website, and you can get more details, of course, lists of all the events on the in the RASC handbook. If we could go to the next slide, please. This one is again one that's cut off at the bottom a little bit, but there are several very good events in May, June, and July, in the warm months towards summer. And I'll be back in the U.S. then, so I'll be looking forward to these, some of these anyway. Another event over Northern California with Gamma Tauri, a Hyades 3.6 magnitude Hyades star passing near Redding and just north of Reno. So that's track number 54. Interesting thing is on June 11th, there's a graze of 48 Leonis, a 5.1 magnitude star. That's the same star that we observed the graze of just north of Alice Springs on June 22nd this year. But this time we had a northern limit graze, but this time it's a southern limit graze passing from Calgary to central Minnesota. Kappa Virginis also has, I think, some interesting history. The one on July 13th, track number 69, passing over southern Oregon and just north of Boise. I think that star was the first one that the U.S. Naval Observatory had a cable expedition for, the first ever cable expedition near Richmond, Virginia, back in 1964. I think it was also July, June or July. Anyway, another very good graze of a Hyades star on July 29th. The moon passes through the Hyades, and we get a graze of 4.8 magnitude ZC 677 passing right over some populous cities, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Utica, and then passing over Maine. So that's track number 78 there. But the highlight, the real good events, best one is the next graze, which is unfortunately cut off on the view graph, but on the presented one. But it's a graze. It's track number 79. It's the thick curve shown in the middle of the map of Aldebaran, with only 23% sunlit moon on the dark side. So it'll be truly spectacular naked eye event passing over close to El Paso, Texas, Oklahoma City, St. Louis, and Detroit. But at Detroit occurs right at sunrise, and so it won't be a naked eye event there. As you can see on the map, it also passes over Toronto and Montreal, but the sun will be above the horizon at those cities, so still easily seen with a telescope, but and possibly binoculars. But I might recommend maybe we should have the IOTA meeting in St. Louis or Oklahoma City if we have it in Oklahoma City, we'd have a little bit better chance to run east or west to get good weather. I haven't checked the day of the week of this event. That would be another consideration, of course, if it's too far from a weekend. Anyway, I certainly plan to go out to try to observe it, and an Aldebaran graze with a crescent moon like that presents a really great opportunity for multiple stations. You could use mighty minis, just spread them all over the place and really trace out the profile in extreme detail. Although there's not that much scientific interest in doing that these days, it's a good opportunity to check out equipment and everything. So anyway, there are some other opportunities. If you go on to the next slide, we have another graze of Aldebaran on August 25th, but it occurs in broad daylight, passing from northern Oregon to North Carolina, so it goes across the country there. Also on September 2nd, there's a graze of Jupiter, it passes over from southwest Oregon to the Florida Keys, the dotted thick line key there, and it occurs in daylight, but then it passes over the South Bahamas. That'll be a fairly difficult event because the moon will only be 2% sunlit. But I kind of show that because it'll be, present a really interesting view of the, see the moon and Jupiter together right after sunset. And I'm sure we'll get a lot of reports of a UFO near the moon on that night. The only other really, that March 12th event, that was just a line that I should have edited out, so I'll have to correct this slide and send another one out for the final posting. I just had that on there to line up the columns correctly. I had to do some editing to get things to line up, and that's from about 2 or 3 slides back. So track number 27 is not on this slide. So in the next one, just showing what's happening the rest of the year. You can see all these paths, and if you see one that passes near your home, you can go to the RESC handbook and find out more details, find out the date and the time, and get some idea of the circumstances. And also on the website that IOTA, the one that I gave at the very beginning of the talk, we will be posting within a month or so. We'll be posting, data where you can really see the details of the path. And of course, I should have mentioned Brad Timerson's excellent website with the Google Maps for these grazes. He always keeps ahead and tries to post a bunch of the better ones. And he does have most of the ones that are on these maps. He does it 1 month at a time in advance or so. And so certainly we should thank him for that service. And you can generate your own interactive maps from Occult quite easily, creating a .htm file, and then that automatically pulls up the Google Maps, and you can zoom in on them. Anyway, the only Aldebaran graze on this one is on October 19th. But the moon is 87% sunlit, but the path goes over some good areas. It passes over Los Angeles and just southern part of Las Vegas, over Denver and Minneapolis. So, but it won't be a naked eye event, but it will be a good binoculars event since it occurs on the dark side of the moon. Probably mighty minis wouldn't work with that bright a moon, but probably if you a MIDI or certainly a maxi, a MIDI might probably would resolve it well enough to record it if you want to try multiple stations. yes, it could be another opportunity to be in Las Vegas, and I think it's just exactly a year from now. Maybe maybe the weather would be better, or another roll of the dice. Anyway, next slide. And this just shows the events during the last 2 months of next year. And by then we'll probably have already had the IOTA meeting. There's just one Graze of Aldebaran that occurs on December 13th with an almost full moon. It'll provide a total occultation across almost all of the United States and southern Canada. And you can see that the southern limit is the thick curve that passes over central Mexico and sort of southern Florida peninsula over Fort Myers and I think probably Fort Pierce near those places. But the northern limit passes over British Columbia, where it's, of course, the weather prospects aren't quite as good. So I think that's the end. Oh no, I have one more slide. And this just shows the worldwide Aldebaran events of 2016. I don't have anything showing the whole year. I'll have these up. In these cases, the black curve indicates a graze that occurs in the nighttime on the dark side of the moon. A yellow curve means it occurs during the nighttime on the bright side, the sunlit side of the moon, and a blue curve means that it occurs in daylight. Either on the bright side or the dark side. It doesn't differentiate. So with that, that's the end of the talk, and I guess the end of the meeting, except for any final comments and any questions. Okay, very good. May as well take the mic away from me then, and thanks for a great meeting. I really enjoyed, I attended all of it and was very thankful for everyone for all the interesting presentations that were given. We have a lot of work to do during the rest of the, we have a lot of interesting ideas to follow up on. Okay, okay, I'll close.